All right.
Don't talk. And, or sorry, talk.
Yeah.
Red is talk.
Are we live?
Michael, are we live? Yes.
Okay, I'm showing 6:01 PM. This is Mike Romer, Board of Directors. I will call the meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Director Danziger,
Here.
Director Hassler,
Here.
Director Jeff,
Here.
Director Jorgens,
Here.
President Romer.
Here. Then I think we have a pledge of allegiance. And the flag is to our right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we take public comment on closed session items, please?
So we do not have any attendees. We did receive one written public comment from Jonathan Goodwin, which was forwarded to the directors and is available on our website.
I did read the letter. I thought he made some good points and I will take those into consideration. I think other board members will as we go forward. We will close the closed session. It is 6:02.
Mute the microphone, so we'll adjourn to closed session. We're ready to begin.
Okay, I'm showing it's 7:13 PM. This is Mike Romer. I will call the open session of the meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Director Danziger.
Here.
Director Hassler.
Here.
Director Jex.
Here. Here.
President Romer.
Here. Okay, I don't believe we have anything to report from the closed session. I apologize to the members of the public. We had a lot to do, and I think we are working toward getting it done, but we are now at agenda item 6 and 6.1, a proclamation of the 25th anniversary flag commemoration and preservation in the town of Moraga's time capsule. Okay. Somebody's going to give me a. All right, the MOFD Board of Directors are here to present a proclamation to preserve the MOFD 25th anniversary flag by placing it in the town of Moraga time capsule as a lasting tribute to the service and commitment of the district to future generations. And where do we have the time capsule?
The time capsule is going to be buried on November 11th or 12th, the date that the town of Moraga was incorporated.
Okay,
And so there's going to be a box that it was.
so we have nothing to put this in. This is ceremonial dedication of the flag
Yes,
for the time.
Yes,
The proclamation will go with the flag
that is correct.
and will be opened in the year 2074. So we're going to put that on the calendar.
Okay, will do.
That is correct.
So
Yes,
far, it's open for me.
it's correct.
All right, so agenda item 7.1.
So we just quickly open public comment for
Oh.
the,
So we don't have to sign the proclamation, right? So you'll notify us about it.
this evening I have the proclamation for all your signatures.
So we can do that tonight.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so we'll open public comment on agenda item 6.1.
And so public comments open for item 6.1. And we do not have any public comment.
Agenda item 7.1, brief information only reports related to meetings attended by a director at district expense. I don't think see no other announcements by the board members. 7.2, questions and informational comments from board members and staff. Do you have anything? 7.3, communications received. 7.4, fire chief updates.
Directors, we'll start with the finance report.
Good evening, directors. I have a brief finance report this evening. Next slide, please. We'll start with the strike team reimbursement from OES. The strike team receivable for 2023-2024 is $717,000. We've received payments of $647,000, and we have our net receivable outstanding of $70,525. So far in 2024-2025, we have an estimated receivable of $170,258. Although I just looked in the system today, and as of today, that number has increased to $198,630 because we've had people out on strike team, and that is being updated daily. Fiscal year 2024, there are 2 invoices from June and 1 from February that are still outstanding, and those make up the $70,000. For fiscal year 2025, it's recent July and August activity that is reflected. Next slide, please. Tunnel East Bay Hills financial update. The project budget for the Tunnel East Bay Hills is $6.3 million. We have invoiced to CAL FIRE through June 30th of 2024, $2.9 million, and we received payments from CAL FIRE of $2.2 million. Our net receivable outstanding for this, which reflects the second quarter of 24 invoice, is $641,000. Post June 30th, we have already expensed another $877,000 for the fuel break. So our total expense outstanding is 1.5 million. The invoice for the second quarter was submitted to CAL FIRE on July 30th, and it is currently under review by CAL FIRE. The total expenses to date for the fuel break are 3.8 million, which is 59.8% of the total budget.
And directors, under the fire marshal update, he'll provide specific updates about the operational components of the Tunnel East Bay Hills fuel break. And these are the numbers that tie to item 9.13 on consent, increasing the authorization for one of the contractors we've been using.
Treasury bill update. The district now has $21.1 million invested in treasury bills. The maturities are listed below, and the staff will continue to project cash flows to determine the amount of reinvestment available when treasury bills mature. Next slide. Other items. An $8 million prepayment for fiscal year 25 was paid to Cicera on July 31st, and the fiscal year 24 audit will take place the week of August 26th. That concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
First off, I have a brief recruitment update. First is the battalion chief recruitment for internal candidates only was released on August 1st and will run through October 30th. The battalion chief recruitment is scheduled for every 2 years based on our career development policy and will establish an eligibility list. An office specialist fire prevention recruitment was released with an application period from July 15th through July 23rd, and I will be hosting interviews on Friday. So I'll have more information at the next board meeting for you on that. And then finally, a point that's not up here is the deputy fire chief position was released this evening and closes tomorrow at 5 p.m. And then for employment changes, I had a couple of separations, office specialist for fire prevention and a firefighter paramedic. And then we have a new employee, our office specialist emergency preparedness, Julie Sparks, and she is here with us this evening. So please welcome Julie.
We're delighted to have you aboard.
Unless there's any questions, that concludes my presentation.
The firefighter medic, that was one of our probationary.
Correct. Thank you.
But for C, fire marshal report. Oh,
I would like to give Julie an opportunity to introduce herself. As many of you know, Julie's been a longtime participant in a number of our programs. We're very excited to be able to formalize her role and bring her on to the staff side of the equation, but please.
Yeah, I really appreciate everything that you guys have done for all of us and our community. And I'm really excited to be here in this new role with the emergency preparedness. I have worked a lot with the volunteers, and I look forward to working with you as well and continuing the great works that we've all done. So I appreciate it. I'm really glad I'm here.
I think as everybody here knows, and I know in particular, Julie has for many, many years had a reputation in this community for selfless dedication to Moraga-Orinda CERT as the registrar on the support unit. I can't tell you how many people really have a great deal of respect for what you've put in to this community as a volunteer. And I know that we're going to be very lucky to have you on the team, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, President.
So you've
Welcome aboard.
You've already started, right?
I have. This is my
Yes.
second week.
Second week.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief.
Seven point four C, fire marshal report.
Good evening, directors. A little different presentation on my fire marshal report this evening. The report's in your packet. The areas I wanted to cover were the outstanding Juniper cases. We have 9 cases remaining open. Most of those are extensions that folks have asked for. One of them had an environmental issue nesting bird was in the juniper. We had our environmental consultant go out and confirm that. That will be taken care of next month and September. And then e-occupancy with school back in session. Steve and I have reached out to the school staff. We gave them all summer to complete and correct their violations. We will be out next week inspecting, and if those violations have not been corrected, we will issue citations with fines. Making contact with the school, and I heard back from the Acalanes High School District that they are convinced their violations have been corrected. So happy to hear that. Next slide, please, Marcia. Yes, sir.
Does the e-occupancy include like preschool?
No, sir. K through 12.
And how do preschools get inspected?
They go through state licensing. And then we get a form from the state licensing. We have 10 days to complete that inspection. So it comes to us. Any building construction or anything with e-occupancies go through Department of State architect. So we don't get to see the plans. We just become the inspector of record after any constructions happen.
So do preschools get inspected annually?
No, so only when there's
No,
a
sir. They
permit
only,
causing event. Only when there's a permit event, a permit required event. So a change in occupancy, construction. We recently had one where two preschools merged, which changed the number and the age mix. That triggered an inspection, but they're not a state mandated inspection occupancy on an annual basis.
So, for instance, I know we're having the city of Orinda is having a new preschool up at Wilder. You know, the
Yes, sir.
Apple House?
The Art and Garden Center?
What?
At the Art and Garden Center, sir?
Well, below it.
Oh, at the ranch house?
Yeah, the ranch.
Yes, sir.
So is that gonna?
Yes, sir.
trigger inspection?
yes, sir. That will trigger inspections. And we've already been involved in that process. They were required to add additional sprinklers. Next slide, please, Marcia. Tunnel East Bay Hills Fuel Break Director. I have a series of photos for you tonight on that. Project's going very well. We currently have two of our contractors working on the project, providing hand crews. The photos you see are from behind the community of Canyon up towards the Wilder development. So our original project that we brought forward to the board and Chief and I had in our mind was using heavy equipment, mastication, and a lot of heavy equipment to conduct this work. Due to the environmental concerns and everything that our environmental consultant identified, we're only able to use hand crews. So we have two companies that from our RFPs that can provide hand crews. Both of them are being used on the project right now. We have one that's local, one that's from outside the area. One of the companies is providing a 20-person hand crew, one's providing a 15-person hand crew with supervisor. Both are doing well. One's doing a little better than the other one. They're not having issues with our on-scene biologists. Their production rates are a little more than the other company, but still very happy with both our contractors that are out there. Next slide, please, Marcia. As you can see from the work, especially the pre-work on the left and the post-work on the right, created that shaded fuel break, lifting the tree canopy up, removing that undergrowth that will help slow that fire down. Our plan right now is to work both companies until October 4th. We have roughly $1.6 million left in work, what we call contractual in the grant to actually do the work on the ground. Going to October 4th with both companies is going to run us down to roughly $900,000 to almost $1 million, which will allow us a glide path out. We'll continue one company working through October into November when we transition to hopefully Confire Crew 12 to do all our pile burning and our prescribed fire that we're doing as part of this project. The local crew that we have doing a really good job for us, and that's coming before the board at a later item to potentially increase that contract. And the reason for that is we can turn him on and off. So as his crew's here, if we run into bad weather, we run into fire weather, we can turn that crew off and say, hey, go do another project, come back tomorrow. Where the other companies from outside the area, they're going to have to put their employees down at a hotel for a day. So it's been very beneficial for the project to have that local knowledge, that local crew here that we can turn it on and off at a moment's notice.
Directors, one other item of note, as Jeff alluded to, you being able to utilize Confire Hand Crew 12 through the winter months for prescribed fire and pile burning. That crew would be seasonal were it not for the commitment of district grant funds to keep them working through the winter. That will allow them to retain employees they otherwise would have laid off at the end of fire season. So we will not only be able to benefit from their work, trusted agents who we can count to carry out burning because they are local firefighters, but it'll reduce the cost and time associated with hiring new employees and startup for Confire next spring. So there's a regional benefit. And given that this is external state-funded grant money, we thought the opportunity to align that money while getting the mitigation value we needed to complete to also preserving a regional resource was a very prudent use of the taxpayer dollar.
Directors, the grant has to be completed by March 15th, and next year we anticipate no issues. We'll be on time, under budget with everything. Next slides, please, Marcia. Yes, sir.
So it looked great. I mean, it was dramatic, before and after pictures are very good to have them from the same location. So how soon is that going to grow back, and what's it going to cost to keep it looking right?
After the 2 winters we've had, sir, we've had to go back into the areas we treated the first and second year of the grant. Due to the heavy amount of rain, it exploded in some of those areas, the growth. So it is going to take time and money to get in there. We will work on submitting for a additional grant to allow for the maintenance of this project through fire mitigation and hazardous fuel reduction. We're also working with East Bay Mud on their areas. They're talking about bringing goats back in and other things to maintain the work that we've accomplished there on their property.
I'd say 2 other things, sir. We're also making use of, with Julie filling the full-time position that Dennis previously filled part-time, that will free up more of Dennis's time to focus on prescribed fire, which is our primary tool for maintaining these areas before they regrow. Also largely leveraging Jeff's contacts and experience with the state, we were able to essentially change attitudes on behalf of CAL FIRE with regard to grants for maintenance purposes that previously, as a sort of informal policy, they did not review those favorably. That's changed. And so we will be submitting grants to maintain the work that was completed under the 2019 North Orinda Shaded Field Break and the current Tunnel East Bay Hills Field Break to include the use of prescribed fire. So identifying more of those grant opportunities that can be used both for our resources as well as Confire Crew 12 to burn. And then being thoughtful about the use of either hand crews or in some of these areas that after they've been opened up, it may be more permissive for the use of machinery, which to maintain it because it's no longer core scrub and we can visualize the area. So we reduce the probability of machinery causing an inadvertent take of a protected species that would bring down the cost of maintenance. But under any circumstance, maintenance is far cheaper than the initial entry. Also of note, Jeff and our consultants at Sequoia, when they wrote the Cal VTP that was used for the East Bay Hills Tunnel Fuel Break, the environmental approval under Cal VTP, that's an enduring document. So we will not have the startup environmental review costs that were associated with this project because that work's already been done and the VTP was written in a way that anticipated future maintenance efforts. For a home hardening grant program update, directors, there is an item on consent that will authorize us to purchase additional gutter glove. Dennis and Julie and Jeff and Marcia have done quite a bit of work to identify opportunities for drop shipping this material direct from the manufacturer. That's That will increase our capacity. There's been a lot of demand for gutter glove. However, the limiting factor was the physical space at 41 and then the availability of either staff or volunteers to distribute. We have consumed the available volunteer resources for distribution, and we were taking district employees, the fuel mitigation specialists, off inspections and off chipping in order to run the distribution days. By drop shipping, we'll reduce that, and then there won't be the limiting factor of material handling. So with assuming that passes on consent, that will expand our gutter glove distribution. And then we've ordered additional amounts of mesh, particularly the circles that have been high demand, and then some of the larger 48 and 60-inch measurement mesh sections that can be used for screening in decks that there's been some demand for. So we've ordered some amounts of that as a trial. We're distributing that, and we'll look to continue to match demand with the supplies on hand. The mesh doesn't really work for drop shipping, so we do continue to have the material handling, the space it takes up, and needing to cut it to order. But we'll continue to explore opportunities and to expand both of those programs to meet community demand.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is time for it. Residents in Moraga-Orinda, can they go, if we approve on the consent calendar tonight, will it be live so we can go order their gutter guards?
Yes, sir.
Like immediately? Like people have been asking.
Yes, sir. It's going to take a little bit to make sure everything's aligned, but there is nothing, there's nothing systemic that would prevent us from turning it live. It's just a matter of making sure everything works, the links are working, and that we don't turn something green before it's ready for action.
Will there be a way to notify the public?
Yes, sir. We can, I mean, what I would suggest we've done before is it's a slow rollout. We get the initial folks, we stress test the system, and then we can utilize all of our means of community communication to get the word out.
Thank you for your time. I had some questions. Sure.
Fire Marshal? Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple, just a couple of questions. On the code enforcement violation count, I see 16 juniper removal still on there. That went into effect 9 months ago. So
Those are just continued citations. So we have one case in particular, the homeowner is refusing our certified letters. If we try to knock on the door and talk to him, he's very aggressive, verbally abusive to staff. So right now we are continuing to issue citations, and it's a case that Chief and I are going to have to figure out what we want to do with.
and something like that may end up coming to us.
Probably not, sir. But we have some experience with carrying out lien funded mitigation on occupied private parcels. We have to go before a judge for a trespass warrant. We have to have a law enforcement officer, a cop with us to serve the warrant. It's generally a very bad idea for us to do non-voluntary work on an occupied private parcel. We'll continue to work through a number of the elements, but as district council has pointed out before, the law is very deferential to residents on private property, and we have to proceed appropriately with great caution. This continues to be an issue, though, where residents just refuse to do what is required. We have a similar case where a resident just discovered that they were in the district for a kind of a quirk of property lines, and did not respond with joy and happiness to learn that they were not in Lafayette and they're in fact in the district. And as a result of that, all of the progressive fire safety things that we are so proud of, when they discovered that applied to their property, that was not cause for celebration. So when residents dig in and just refuse to do the work, it does result 9 months later in significant investment in staff time and resources to go through all of these steps to something that eventually be resolved in the favor of the law. However, that takes time, sir.
I guess that would be, had to do with the citation report. I mean, I see one, there's a couple that have many citations. I mean, there's one property owner has like 10 citations or so, adding up, particularly on Reed Boulevard. So are those are citations every so often. I mean, at a certain period, every month, you just keep giving them citations. When do we have some closure on that? Because if we keep giving citations, it keeps adding up, and
Yes, sir. St. Mary's is, I mean, it's no different than St. Mary's, who is back up to $17,000 in outstanding alarms since their payment almost a year ago, the last time they settled the bill. So certainly as a board policy, the board could direct that we move more aggressively on that. My recommendation is we don't. It is massive amounts of staff time are consumed by a single case when we move forward with them faster than sort of the natural evolution will allow.
Well, a question on that same report, there's about $60,000, roughly 60,000 in total. I assume these are all unpaid. I looked in the financial statements and we collected about 31,000. So I guess I just question, what is the control process? And when did we decide to send it out for collection, or when do we just leave it?
Two different discussions with, just if I may, with ambulance billing, right? There's a very distinct process. Someone received a service and they need to pay for the service, and we follow that. With citations, the intent of the citation is not to generate revenue. It is to get the residents' attention and compel compliance with our ordinances. So we take a very liberal approach with waiving fees once the correction has been addressed. And obviously sending it, the citation to collection would limit our ability to waive. So we, as a general statement, we don't send citation past due accounts to collections, because our intent, if we get to that point, is to waive some portion of those fees as part of the eventual settlement of the underlying issue.
And if that happens, we take them off the report. So these are just outstanding, existing. Looking at the amount of fees that we've collected, it's gone up substantially from what it was in prior years. So indication, at least trying it, is have some success.
Yes, sir. The district's obviously program and enforcement regime has evolved and been developed significantly, particularly with the increase in staffing. And we've gotten better at it. We have additional electronic systems in place now that were not previously in place. The funding and staffing of the dedicated office specialist in prevention freed up significant capacity and made us more effective. So we're a lot better at it than we were in past years. Our goal, of course, is to get to no citations and no fees, neither levied nor collected. But I think we're a ways out from that, sir.
Page 9, the code enforcement violation counts. There's 160 and 153 that have to do with the zone 0. Can we get some kind of indication as to what kind of level of cooperation we're getting from the community particularly on the zone 0?
75% failure rate on reinspection or an initial inspection to include in Firewise neighborhoods, almost 100% failure on reinspection when we go out to check prior. One of the intents with the resident letter the new resident letter was recommended previously and you have before you is we're seeing not only have economies sprung up around complying, but creativity and American ingenuity is alive and well in the district. So we see landscapers piling the mulch 2 feet 1 inch from the house. It is obviously an intent to come push it back the morning after the inspection. So increasing the outreach and education to ensure the resident is aware that this isn't inadvertent, and then beginning to do more quality control going back 30 days after something's been signed off to ensure that it still looks like it did at the time we signed it. The requirements are enduring. These are not one time, as they are with some other things. Sir.
With 1 inch pile, when you go back, if it has been put back in 30 days later, or you just give them the citation right away?
Yes, sir. No, sir, that's a citation. The goal of the pre-citation, sir, is, and this goes back now almost 7 years ago, was the goal of the pre-citation was that no resident is going to learn about the requirements with a citation and a fine in their hands. And so we do our early season mailing, which I don't think is well read, but at least it occurs. And the first contact everyone has with us is outreach and education documented in the form of a pre-citation. No harm, no foul if the work's completed within the 30 days that the pre-citation's in effect. Once you know, however, this includes subsequent follow-up year. Once you know, it goes straight to citation.
Directors, if I may, real quick, sir, I missed a part in my fire marshal report, if it's okay to go back. Okay, and my apologies, Director. You were given this evening a draft letter for our residents that we will distribute when a property transfer has taken place or somebody's moved into the fire district. This is the first page of it. The second page will have links and QR codes, and thank you to Marcia for helping me put this together. But just wanted to bring that forward to the directors because it was talked about at a previous meeting having this, so.
This is the draft.
Yes, sir.
If we get it, I'll read it.
Absolutely, sir. Mark it up and kick it back to us.
Say one marks up Marcia's letters at their own peril. But,
And any other questions on those, or should we move on to that standards?
no update on the standards of cover item, directors.
Then we
Was it coming soon?
Yes, sir. Well, I wouldn't want to promise next month, but it still remains underway. It obviously, there's some other factors outside of the standards of cover to which it is tied. I don't want to get one ahead of the other and get out of sequence.
Operations.
Hi, good evening, directors. I'd like to review the significant events that have taken place across our district since the last time we met, beginning with the 4th of July. Next slide. This year's Independence Day was another successful year. The day's events are always packed with full scheduled public gatherings, including our parade here in Moraga, the Moraga Commons Festival, and of course, the fireworks display held in Moraga. Next slide. However, the county expected or the county experienced the unexpected or unscheduled events of the 911 calls. So in total across our county, between 10 a.m. on July 4th and 3 a.m. on July 5th, we received across the county 1,104 calls for service. In total, there were 317 911 calls sent through our dispatch center across the county. MOFD participated and responded to this incident that you see before you on the right-hand side of a fire there in Pittsburgh, where Contra Costa County Fire called for additional resources of a fire that was believed to start from fireworks. And obviously immediate threat to the homes there in front of you. We were happy to respond and assist. Fortunately, there were no homes lost at this time. Next slide. We would like to thank our partners in law enforcement, community communications volunteer group, CERT group, our Rescue One group, and all the other agencies that came together to make Independence Day a successful event. And as you can see, this day is a fun day for us to interact with our communities and really in all hands to make this a successful event. A special thanks to Chief John King, who's pictured up there in the corner with his world famous barbecue that came and fed our folks along with the law enforcement group as well. Next slide. And as you are aware, MOFD has been very busy across the western states with mutual aid assignments. This picture was provided to us by Captain Mike Marquardt on engine 345. That took place as part of one of the engines that you see there before you they grouped together as part of a strike team. This was from the Park Fire in Butte County. Next slide. And additional pictures that were provided to us from staff that are out in the field serving in various capacities from incident management team members to boots on the ground firefighter efforts. Next slide. And this is a quick video play before you. And this is just a quick demonstration of some of the fire behavior that we've seen not only within our own state of California, but across the western states, including Washington and Oregon, of just a brief snapshot of this type of fire behavior that our crews, along with crews across the nation, have experienced on these large fires that have broke out. Next slide. This slide, I took some pictures and received some pictures back from our staff. We often are asked about how incident management teams are gathered in areas that don't have the amenities that we normally would, including power, water, shelter, internet, things like that. And the most simple answer is that we are self-contained. So those yurts that you see before you and trailers behind those are the equipment that's gathered in remote locations, and it's powered by generators and solar to provide the incident management teams the means to conduct and mitigate incidents. The AV equipment that you see before you was contracted by the incident management team and provided as a means to broadcast to communities and public of incident updates as the incident progressed. Next slide. This is a growing list of just a few of the incidents since the last time we met that our personnel have been involved with and responded to assist with. The picture in the slide here is Engineer Dave Mazaika giving the morning briefing at the Pioneer incident in Washington as a member of the incident management team serving the function of the medical unit leader. Next slide. On July 1st at approximately 5:17 p.m., MOFD, CAL FIRE, Berkeley Fire, and East Bay Regional Park District units responded to a reported vegetation fire on Grizzly Peak Boulevard. An aggressive initial attack was initiated and the fire was contained to a small spot to about 20 by 20. This area was within the state responsibility area. CAL FIRE handled the investigation believed to begin from fireworks. And again, the other picture on July 2nd, a few hours later at approximately 9:30 p.m., units from MOFD, CAL FIRE, Oakland Fire, Berkeley Fire, and East Bay Regional Park District responded to a second vegetation fire right in the same area, Grizzly Peak and South Park Drive. Upon arrival, units on scene reported the fire had spread to approximately 1 acre and established on both sides of Grizzly Peak. MOFD Battalion Chief Steve Gailing arrived on scene, established command, and coordinated suppression efforts. Thanks to the crews for the prompt action, that this fire was contained quickly. It had certainly had potential to be otherwise. Next slide. This picture was sent to us of a vehicle fire on Highway 24. Sometimes often taken for granted of the busy thoroughfare that we have that cruises right through the middle of our district. For us, this is certainly a vehicle fire, but the second piece is all of the vegetation that you see behind that picture. So it is not only important for us to contain and extinguish the car to the vehicle of origin, but also prevent it from spreading to other areas, to include vegetation, particularly this time of year. Next slide. And as we close out, although we have been busy, our focus still remains within our district and providing our staff with training and education that we bring back from our fires. So this fire here is a joint training with Oakland Fire to combine efforts, stretch hose lines, practice common communications, and then, like I said, bring back the information that we're seeing outside of our district. Next slide. And last, I'll close with a luau that was held as a public education event at the Moraga-Royal. This is Lodo and her daughter and our crews. This is an annual event that we've attended for many years and had a chance to meet and greet staff there along with the residents at the Royale. I stand by, as I have many times, that public education is a very important event for us and a chance for us to interact with our communities. Pending any questions, this concludes the presentation.
I thought Sora did a really nice article, and as I recall, I think she mentioned you and the chief as having been assigned to various fires throughout the state. Isn't that correct? You were at
So I responded to the Hill incident in the Six Rivers National Forest, and Chief Winokur responded to the Boral incident in Kern County. Sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Directors, here are the upcoming events of note. We have the Joint Fire Prevention or 2x2 meeting tomorrow night at Sarge Little Hill across the street. We have the Board of Directors meeting, and then of note, we added the October 21st Tri-Agency meeting that will be held here. But with the Governing Board of MOFD, the City Council from Orinda, and the Town Council from Moraga meeting together for the first time, I think, in about 12 years. So that should be encourage folks who are interested in fire safety and fire prevention to participate in that. And then we have our open house that will be held on October 5th at Station 41, and our pancake breakfast with our pancake trailer is back in the fight and ready to produce.
We can open public comment for items of the announcements. And we do not have any public comment.
All right, and let's move on to agenda 8. Public comment items not on.
So we do have one in-person public comment. If you wanted to come up to the podium.
The resident about 43 years, same house, Ivy Drive area. We have a good good long connections into the city. And both, my wife taught at JM for like 25 years. I was on the planning commission here for 4 years. Been on the board of Moraga Valley Pool, Moraga Country Club. Anyway, on July 2nd, your rescue guys saved my life probably because I had a large pulmonary embolism that came right away. Spent 10 days in John Muir. Lovely time. Not John Muir, Kaiser, sorry. Anyway, when I got done, about 2 or 3 days after I got out, I knew it was the Ream Firehouse. I went over there and I found the guy, Brian Oliver. And I said, what do I do to say thank you? I mean, I don't know if you directly saved my life, but what I had about a 30% mortality rate from everything I've read. And he said, I said, can I give you a box of steaks or beer? Or he said, no, contribute to the rescue one, which I did right away. And he said, come talk. So I'm just here to say that. And Brian was wonderful. I also know he's doing his job. But he said, come talk and say thank you in public. So thank you very much.
Well, I really appreciate you coming. Congratulations that you're here and that you've recovered.
I'm not all the way yet, but
you're on.
Walking around,
You
yeah.
seem to be doing real well so far. So that's all a good sign. We love, we all here really appreciate you bringing.
I was just, about 5 days after I got out of Kaiser, I walked into the firehouse and there he was on duty, and I'm not very emotional. I gave him a hug, but
It's our day to hear that from you,
Anyway. So he asked that I do this in public. So here I am. So thank you very much.
Thanks to Brian
Thank
for
you.
suggesting
Yeah.
it. Thank you for coming out, and you're welcome at every and all of our meetings. It's
Anyway, very much like the planning commission, except I used to sit up there. Anyway,
thank you.
thank you
Appreciate it.
very much.
We do not have any more public comment. And so we can open public comment for the items on the consent agenda. We've received one written public comment from Jonathan Goodwin, was forwarded to the directors and is available on our website. We do not have any other public comment.
Said at least two comments, and as always, he has a great attention to detail. I appreciate his comments as always, and I assure him that they are taken into consideration. So
If there isn't any comment, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
we have a vote.
Director Danziger.
Aye.
Director Hassler.
Aye.
Director Jex.
Aye.
Director Jorgens.
Aye.
President Romer.
Aye. So then on to, let's see here.
Item 10.1.
Item 10.1 would be the regular agenda. The PARS, other post-employment benefits pre-funding and pension rate stabilization trust program annual client review.
Good evening, directors. Public Agency Retirement Services provides trust and investment management services for the district's OPEB retiree medical insurance and for the pension rate stabilization money. PARS provides an annual client review. Tonight, we have in attendance representatives from PARS and from PFM Asset Management who will provide the annual review.
So I'm hoping we all read this already, and so maybe we could have them focus on kind of the results, just how much money we have and what we're earning on it, and leave more time for comments.
Absolutely. Good evening, directors, and comment taken. And my name is Rachel Sanders, Vice President of Consulting with PARS, and I will absolutely be brief with my comments so that we can open ample time for discussion and questions. So I'll give you the very high level updates before we open it up for questions. One thing I did want to note here on page 3 is that you'll notice on the bottom right-hand corner, as Glorianne just mentioned, PFM Asset Management is a newer name to our partnership, and that is effective January 1st of 2024. From the district's perspective, there was no change to either your allocation nor the partnership with Andrew Brown, who did move over from Highmark to PFM, and so he is still overseeing the investments for this trust program. So that noted, we'll keep moving. Next slide, please. And we'll actually go one perfect. We'll stop right here. I will note this is a summary of your OPEB plan. Account balance as of June 30th, 2024, as you'll see there, is about 4.63 million. Next slide, please. Perfect. Okay. So the great thing about your OPEB plan, I will just note on a high level again, you've continued to put money in and you haven't taken money out. So you've had the benefit of those interest earnings applied to those assets in the trust. As you can see here, the inception to date annualized return 7.83% on your OPEB plan. And we'll keep moving along here. Pension plan update. You can see here, as of June 30th, 2024, 13.325 million in your pension pre-funding account. Similar story as we go through these next couple slides. You've continued to fund the pension account, haven't taken any money out, so you've gotten the benefit again of those interest earnings on assets, which can be found in a couple slides here. Perfect. One more. Yep, there they are. Over 8.5% annualized return on your pension plan returns. So that was, again, very expeditious in terms of going through those slides, but I know that there's a lot of questions that the directors have. So I do have Andrew Brown from PFM Asset Management with me, and we are more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So I don't remember which slide it is, but there's a slide in here that shows how it compared to other indices and that sort of thing that we might want to spend, because that's what I'm going to ask questions about. So we've had these discussions for, I don't know, at least 6 or 7 years. And I don't have the slide here in front of me, but it seems to me we continue to earn at least the number that was on recently was like 2.5% less than the S&P 500 did over the last 3 years. And so why don't we just have the money invested exactly in the S&P 500 index?
Yes, I'd come back to the same answer that I offer in previous years, is that when you hire Highmark or PFM, you're really hiring an investment advisor who's a fiduciary. And part of that fiduciary, especially for a pension plan, mandates that we diversify the assets. And with respect to diversification, it would be more than just the S&P 500. It's fixed income, it's international, not full. Yes, developed for us, not emerging market for us. Small cap, maybe mid cap. So it's diversifying across a broad array of assets. But Director Jorgens, I mean, I would never argue with you, but it wouldn't even be a debate in terms of if you look at the last, our 9 years working together. I think we have 1 year where international outperformed domestic, right? And that was 2022. And so nobody gets any type of credit for 2022 because that was a down year for everything. So certainly I understand the point about the S&P 500 is the benchmark, but because we practice those prudent fiduciary policies of diversification, we at least have to allocate to other non-S&P 500 assets.
Fund an obligation that we have for making contributions to a pension. So it's not really a pension.
It's a distinction with this, not much of a
big difference because it doesn't, we never have to give it to our pension. There's no requirement that we ever give it to our pension. So we could have this forever, unlike a pension.
Hope you do. I want to continue to come here.
So for me, if we look at Cicera, by the way, they've underperformed, at least I haven't looked in the last couple of years, to be honest, but I know that 20 years before that, they underperformed the S&P 500 on average over that entire 20 years. And so if you just take the money that you would have had if you put it in the S&P 500, and if you're not worried about, because they have pensions, the other thing pensions have is they have constant outflows by definition. Okay, and we don't have any outflows, zero. Right, we have complete discretion over whether we have any outflows. So they need to have short-term money, they need to have liquidity, all kinds of things that we don't have an obligation to do because they have to do it every single year, every month. And so this is a different investment vehicle, and we have the ability to survive over a longer period of time. They have to have money every 2 weeks or however often they make their pension payments, and we don't. And the more money we have, the less risk we have of having a material amount of that ever be due. So it seems to me we have more of an ability. It's like being a young investor. We have the ability to leave the money invested, and if the times get bad, you don't have to liquidate anything, which pension funds often do. We can survive those kinds of things and go on and wait for the market to come back. Because over the last 100 and whatever years, the market's done pretty doggone well. So the equity markets. So when you throw in the debt and all those fun things, and believe me, I took all the same courses we all did about, diversification and all that. But you know what Warren Buffett says about this, right? Told his wife, take my however many $100 billion it is and invest it in the S&P 500 and be happy. So, and that's all you have to do. So for me, I know there was a suggestion to invest in the Wilshire 2000 and a whole bunch of other bizarre funds that, from my experience, are dramatically more risky than the S&P 500. I mean, phenomenally more risky than the S&P 500. Don't have the same kind of returns the S&P 500 has, so you don't really get paid for the extra risk. Why shouldn't we just tell you to invest in the S&P? Do you have the ability, if we told you to, do you have the ability to invest only in the S&P 500 index and be done?
No, I think we would step away.
Which is,
yeah, if you want to segue to that. But if you do want to segue, just let me say one thing. I would encourage you to think about maybe, I won't call it progress, but our journey together with respect, especially the last 3 or 4 years. I think we've crafted an investment policy statement that really achieves a lot of what the collective body here is looking for. Growth, your points are dead on. We don't need liquidity and you don't ask us for disbursement, you haven't yet, and you probably won't next year, right? So we're at 95% equities, 4% fixed income and 1% cash. I mean, it's pretty much built for speed, right? We're built for growth. So I think we have developed something that mirrors what you're looking to achieve. Now, is it 100% of what you want? No, it's not 95% S&P 500 or 100% S&P 500, but it's pretty close. Fiduciary, prudent investor, that would be the reason I would submit to you.
Prudent investor and all that. But if you consistently earn less than the thing you were requesting, I would argue that you're actually doing disservice, because for the whole time we had, I'm pretty sure if you look at the beginning of our portfolio and you compare it against the S&P 500, the S&P 500 is out of performance. Because it seems to me, again, virtually half of it, and Warren Buffett in particular said he had, I think it was a $1 million bet, right? You won for a 10-year period, you get any fund of water, you would keep the S&P 500. What you did. Nobody, right? But they still charge fees for doing it. So it comes back to what benefit are we getting? That's making us more money because and having less risk than being invested in the S&P 500. And I haven't heard an argument that says there's something better. You say, hey, we're 95% invested in equities. Well, what equities, right? And so why not invest in the S&P 500?
500 stocks lately being the last 6-7 quarters, it's been really driven by maybe a handful or two handful of technology stocks. And while they've just been screaming and going through the roof, I think we could all pretty much write certain narratives that would throw possible water at those investments continuing to generate such strong clips. I mean, we're going to get a new administration in Washington in about 80, 90 days, and perhaps that administration might have a stronger bent to regulation. Further, many of those 7 companies participate in the same field. So seeing, an Apple and an Amazon and Google going after each other, competition in this case might hurt both would-be combatants. So just because it's maybe so, but in the S&P 500, when those names are, good grief, what, 35% of the S&P 500, you're going to get a bigger negative bang for your buck, a bigger decline, if in fact the prospects for those companies go down. So this is why we diversify, but I led off with certainly acknowledging the point, and I think your main point is the S&P 500 has been the top asset class from day one of our relationship. This is me going like this. But we're still going to be coming at it from a diversification standpoint because it's the principles that we practice. If the board really does want to pursue this, there is a directed trustee relationship that we can talk about, and Rachel certainly can give you some of the particulars of that. I mean, I'll still stay up here or step aside, but if you do want to pursue it, she's here to give you, what might entail that.
Director Jorgens, just I think I found the numbers just for everybody's. The S&P 500 1-year return, so if we're just looking at 1-year return, was 24.56%. For a 3-year annual return was 10%. So that included the worst, right? Is included in that 10%. And then the 5-year annual S&P return was 15.05% for 5 years, which if you compare that to our best is 8.53. So it's almost double.
That's about right. Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think that in some sense the Standard & Poor's 500 is a diversified way of investing because they kind of cherry pick. I mean, I read news about every once in a while they're knocking somebody off, knocking some company off the list that has been on there for many years and adding somebody else. And usually the ones that are adding do it better than the ones that are knocking off. It's supposed to be an index, but if they're in fact doing that, and you need to speak like if they're in fact
doing that, then it's more diversified than I think most people generally think of an index as being, isn't it?
It's a diversified index of 500 names. It's led by, let's just say that the top 7 names, which represent about 33% or so. But 500 names, to your point, it is diversified. But it doesn't, while the revenues of those names do give you exposure to international markets, it's not technically an international equity. So we kind of miss out on that. We also focus on real estate investments, REITs, which I think the S&P 500 has about 2 to 3% in real estate exposure. So there's that. And of course, it's not fixed income. And of course, fixed income is not a huge part of our current engagement. But yeah, there's other things that our asset allocation deployment introduces the portfolio too. But make no mistake, I mean, the bulk of your portfolio is in the S&P 500. It's just not 100%.
That's a pretty big difference. That's a huge difference. I mean, but my portfolio, I can be impressed. So. Talking about diversification, it's the it's the 500, sorry. No, it's the 500 roughly largest companies in the country. I'm going to guess that at least 90% of them have a material percentage of their business internationally, which, is lots of international divestiture or diversification as far as I can see. They're in lots of industries. It's pretty compelling. The thing it doesn't have is the huge volatility that, the NASDAQ.
It has the volatility, but it's the going up volatility, the good volatility that everybody likes to see. So yeah, it's not too far off volatility wise from international and or small cap, but slightly less.
I don't think we're going to want to go into the whole detail of what the other alternatives are tonight. I think we should probably do some more research.
I mean, Rachel's here. I mean, if you, we're open books. So if you want to explore,
Wouldn't that be part of our investment policy?
Once we understand what the alternatives are, sure. Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of senses? You said that if we directed you to invest in the Standard & Poor's, that you would step back. In other words, you feel like you'd be violating some standards of care in the industry. But how much direction we give you that you would follow without feeling that you had the obligation to step back?
Yeah, Dr. Rowan, I think if you said PFM, AM, 100% S&P 500, that's your investment policy statement. Yeah, I think we would probably step back. Well, I know we would step back. Where we currently have submitted the investment policy, the revised draft, because as we go from high mark, or we've gone from high mark to PFM, we need to supply a new investment policy statement. And I supplied a draft to staffed. And I would say that if you looked at the underlying S&P 500 exposure with that blended benchmark, call it 70%-ish, maybe 68 to 70% would be actually your S&P 500 exposure. So it's not 100%, but it's
as we stand now. You think that's
as the proposal that I submitted in the draft IPS. Yeah, as of where you are right now, 57% allocation. Well, this morning, 57% S&P 500. Your denominator is the total portfolio. Your numerator would be S&P 500.
But literally all of the S&P 500 or just S&P 500 stocks?
The index, IVV, that's the ticker symbol.
Okay, so you do invest.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Everything is in an index-based vehicle. I believe that we have the limit already established in the draft of the IPS. I think that it's a reasonable limit, offers diversification, and I stand by the IPS draft.
How often do you rebalance then? If we're at 57%, what are we at and when do you rebalance?
The rebalancing is usually it's a function of two things. One, if we have a changed worldview, if we want to go, increase to equities or reduce equities, that's going to drive it. The second thing would be appreciation or depreciation in the portfolio. And so we would look at it, if the portfolio moved up or down from our targeted underlying position by 1%, we say, okay, well, do we want to rebalance? Probably not. 1.5, maybe we should too. We're usually always pressing the button.
So is the target 57 for S&P? Is that why we're at 57?
57%, I think, represents roughly what the current positioning is for the IPS. Yeah, roughly in that ballpark.
Okay. So you wouldn't be rebalancing at 57. If you got to like 60, you would rebalance.
Don't exactly
know.
hold me
Okay,
to
okay.
it. Oh,
I mean,
but
just
I
curious.
think you get the
When-
gist of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also had one other question. Just the return on the two different funds are different. Is that because of the vintage of the money, or what? Or is it the portfolio mix that is?
Usually it's a
driving
little
the-
bit wider than what, 1 basis point?
It's
this time?
it's 8.5
cash
and
flow.
7.
It's cash flow. You put more cash flow into the pension and we put that money to work. Maybe we buy low on that day that we put it to work, we're buying high, and it's going to cause a difference in terms of the total return between OPEB and pension. Not a whole lot of contributions to OPEB, if the memory serves me. I think it's more so to the pension. Yeah.
Yeah, the pension's
cash
bigger.
flow.
The pension's bigger. Okay. So just cash flow and timing of cash flow, just timing of the market. Okay.
What are the alternatives that you are here?
So the district does have the opportunity, if it so chooses, to go in what's called a directed route. So currently you're utilizing a discretionary route by utilizing PFM as the investment manager. I would say out of our 500 plus 115 trust clients, we have 2 that are utilizing what's called a directed route. That is a route wherein the district would have the ability to either select another investment provider of your choice, or we actually work with a county that does their own investments. So those are the 2 that we currently have. If you opted to go in the directed route, I could certainly even just preemptively send over to Glorianne what that fee schedule would look like. There's a very large reduction in the U.S. bank trustee fees. The PARS fees do remain the same for the administrative side, but you would have complete discretion in terms of who you wanted to invest with or how you wanted to invest. So that's another option on the table. The downside, well, I don't know.
Are there liability issues? Are there, who's
I
responsible
I
for
would say
anything?
most take on the discretionary approach, not to keep using a word over and over, but I think the fiduciary responsibility being offloaded to the PFM team is desirable for many agencies that we work with. Whereas if you were to, for example, invest yourselves, you would take on that liability. The other potential downside is that because of economies of scale, we're able to keep costs low with our discretionary arrangement and our partnership with PFM. I couldn't say how much it might cost you to go out on the open market and seek investment management services for your district for a trust like this. I actually work with the one agency that has gone out for independent investment management services, and they are actually looking to change to the discretionary arrangement in recent conversations we've had because the company that they're working with has much higher fees that they're charging than PFM can offer. So that would be a consideration, certainly, is a fee comparison if you decide to work with another company.
There were, there's a fiduciary question. You guys have it today, and we, the board, we, the MOFD, who would have the liability, I'll call it, if we chose the alternative that one other company or other entity has done.
Yeah, I would tend to lean toward the governing body. So I would say likely that would fall to the board.
Liability for what?
If you were to be investing the funds on your own, you would take on that fiduciary responsibility of investments. So if there was a question, that would come back to the governing body that was making those decisions regarding those investments.
Cash, for example. We had a presentation earlier that you might have seen that says we have $21 million in treasuries. Now, it's pretty hard to argue with treasuries, but it's pretty hard to argue with the S&P 500 too. Treasuries can go up and down in value too. But I guess the question is, who would be there to question you? Is anybody questioning you that you're earning
Oh, we-
2% less?
We have a lot of clients and we go to a lot of board meetings, but anecdotally, I'll share with you that the public never goes to any meeting except for yours. So, maybe somebody from the public might come here and question you. I remember it was our second meeting when a gentleman from the public came up here and said, my name is so-and-so and so-and-so, and I'm a director at Dodge and Cox, and I run the fixed income department, right? So you got a lot of smart people, you got a lot of well-to-do people, and you got a lot of people, those people do come here. And so I'm not saying Mr. Dodge and Cox is going to come here and say, what are you guys doing? But that's something I would offer to you to think about.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Appreciate it.
While it's on the agenda, Chief or whoever, I think we might want to think about what the alternatives are, do a little more. How much we would have made in the last
Yes, sir.
8 years, we would have invested in that versus not. Because it's been a pretty trying, the last 8 years have been up and down a lot in riskiness and everything. So probably not going to have any more volatility than we've had in the last 8 years.
Have we concluded the presentation, and shall I?
Any further questions? Do we need to take public comment? We do.
So public comment is open for item 10.1. And we do not have any public comment.
I don't believe we need to take action. So we can move on to 10.2, approve revised investment guidelines document for the pension trust post-employment benefits.
Directors, so PARS previously used Highmark Capital, which consolidated with PFM in January 2024. As a result of the consolidation, parts of the district's investment guidelines document needs to be updated to reflect PFM as the investment manager. In addition, the PFM Compliance Department reviewed the investment guidelines documents and recommended changes to the district's asset allocation and to the benchmarks. So I draw your attention to the next slide, please, which shows there's two tables. So the top table details the recommended changes to the asset allocation. The bottom slide details the recommended changes to the benchmarks. So I now turn this item over to the board for questions and discussion.
Why would you want to change it from the S&P 500 to the Russell 3000?
That's the same question. Why you don't have to ask that question? I'd also like to know, I'm not so sophisticated on these indexes, but the difference between S&P 500, like their annual return versus the Russell 3000.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll start with the general question of why we're proposing changes in benchmarks, and then Director Danziger, I'll address maybe some of the return dynamics. So as we went from Highmark to PFMAM, Highmark's sort of strategy in terms of domestic equity was to make a decision on small cap, mid cap, large cap, and then maybe also consider REITs. And so those are the four asset classes that we considered in the Highmark world. As we transition to PFMAM, sometimes simple's not a compliment, but in this case, it's maybe a little more simplistic. PFMAM thinks about domestic equities as the Russell 3000. Now, if you lifted up the hood of the Russell 3000, what do you get? Probably about 85% large cap, which would look and feel and smell a whole lot like the S&P 500. You get some mid cap and you get some small cap. I think small cap's about 3-4%. And mid cap would be, 6 to 8%. But you're getting a bulk of S&P 500 or really the Russell 1000. But for our purposes tonight, let's think about the S&P 500. So it's more of a simplistic way of benchmarking for us the asset allocation for our clients. So the allocation that you see here, or the categories that you see up on the screen, would represent our standard asset allocation, with the exception of emerging markets. We would have some in emerging markets for other clients, but we've built that into the IPS not to do EM. Director Denziger, with respect to the return stream, it's pretty close over time with respect to the Russell 3000 versus the S&P 500. Historically, at least over the last 5-6 years, as small caps have trailed large caps, having that 2 to 3 to 4% in the Russell 3000, well, sure, it brought your return down. So the S&P 500 would show a superior return near term, 5-10 years. Longer periods of time, I'd have to dig up some numbers for you. Similar, to like a golf course, figure out what par is on the course and try to outperform the certain targets that we have. It's a little bit less relevant when you're all in index funds. The only way you can really maybe add a tactical allocation would be, say, if we thought small caps were poised for a strong run, then the tactical allocation would be to add more to small caps. But we use it to indicate to our clients what they might expect for a return stream, or what they might have expected, past tense.
Do you expect small caps? They have underperformed the large caps over the last several years. Are you sort of looking at past probabilities and saying they're due to catch up, and that's why you're suggesting this change?
The con would be roughly about 40% of the small cap index doesn't generate a profit, or at least hasn't generated a profit over the last 12 months. The pros is that small caps typically are levered to a raise or a decline in interest rates. So if we thought that interest rates were headed down, certainly we might add a little bit more to small caps than what we currently have. Right now, we would have just a benchmark allocation to small caps. But at the margin, it's probably our view on interest rates that would drive that decision.
Slightly more likely, more probable that interest rates not coming down than small caps.
I'm going to go like this, yeah.
7% REITs. Well, I mean, the real estate market's in real trouble right now. Why in the world would you want to invest in a REIT or have that as a benchmark?
Yeah, I think the poster child for the trouble in the REIT market certainly is office. Within the index that we invest in, office is about 5 to 6% of the underlying index. So yeah, there's certainly a headwind for that. But there's other pretty strong categories within the real estate market. So that's at least somewhat favorable to thinking about real estate. And also to the answer to Director Romer's question about small cap, as interest rates come down, maybe the cash flows that REITs throw off might certainly be more welcomed by investors, and that could attract money.
Why is the benchmark only account for, I think it's 88%? Was the other 12% discretionary, or where's the other 12% go?
Whenever I get these questions, my heart goes, all right, show me what you're looking at.
80 plus 7 plus 7 is 88%.
The recommended benchmark column on the right side of the current benchmark.
And the left, if you add them up, they're both 88%.
They're both 88.
And not 100%.
I don't see any real estate. Oh, there is real estate on that side. You want to come over and look at?
Oh, I'm looking.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm seeing
80 plus 7
current.
plus 1, that's the recommended
You're missing.
benchmark.
Okay, so we're missing 4% to bonds. I still need to get.
Oh, okay, so there is some other allocations up that we just aren't seeing on here.
Yeah. Oh, and international. Where's your international? I think we have 8% international. So let's hope that adds up to 100, 88, 95. Yeah, that's 100. So 8% international and 4% to fixed income.
Oh, okay.
I believe staff has supplied the draft IPS. If you felt that some type of revision needed to be discussed, right now or after I leave the room or intra-meeting, yeah, I mean, you don't have to approve it tonight, but this is the proposal that my firm offers to the district.
Directors, just to clarify there's really two items. Because of the consolidation, that we do need to make changes to the guidelines that mention the specific change in name. You're not required, however, to change the other elements that are recommended. You could direct that we change the names associated with this as a result of the consolidation, but not change the other elements that were marked in the marked up copy included in the packet.
So is an alternative to change all the names, which we probably have to do, right? And yeah, at the next meeting, we have a discussion of what our broader alternatives are.
Well, we still have to have an investment guidelines document in place as long as we have PFM and PARs. So my recommendation is that the board adopts an investment guidelines document. So that's in place. And then as the board, as you directed, then we next month will bring back alternatives to this situation.
We already have one in place, don't we?
Well, but it needs updated to reflect PFM, but that's the minimum change that needs done, is to change it so that it reflects PFM.
Yes, sir.
Yes, right.
We're saying the same thing. Yes, sir.
Director Jorgens, I can, as you point out, I can manage under the current investment policy statement, certainly for another month, right?
Well, we've had 8 months so far, and so or 7 months, so we can.
That's
probably do 8
9.
months, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So.
But at some point sooner, much sooner rather than later, we do need to update it.
Both. We can adopt the recommended asset allocation. It just seems to me that it gives you a little bit more flexibility in what you can invest in. And then we can come back next month and decide whether we want to do anything more substantive.
I would recommend, if we intend to revisit this in a month, I would recommend doing the minimum, which is the PFM for a Highmark name change, leave everything else the same. So we only make a single adjustment with regard to the direction provided to our investment professionals.
Okay. Is that okay with you? Okay.
So review.
Let's do that.
So you need a motion to adopt as amended, which would be to make the changes from Highmark to PFM, not accept the other changes. That would give us what we need to adopt the updated policy, understanding that per the board's direction, that'll be interim. It won't be titled as such. That'll be interim until next month, when we would be able to engage in an additional discussion with regard to the other recommended changes.
For a motion, we'll open public comment and then proceed. So public comments open on item 10.2. And we do not have any public comment.
Now that'd be my motion.
I'll second that motion. Mhm.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Hassler?
Aye.
Director Jex?
Aye.
Director Jorgen?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 10.3.
Thank you.
Great, as we always have been. Thank you.
Directors, at the May 15 board meeting during the budget process, the board authorized an increased monthly base salary range for the fuels mitigation manager and the fuels mitigation specialist positions. The board also authorized a new position of deputy fire chief with a monthly base salary range of 10% higher than the battalion chief position. These changes are reflected in the proposed salary schedule. Staff recommends the board approve the unrepresented employee salary schedule effective July 1, 2024.
But is this actually changing Is this preempting something that's in your item? You have to see what the changes were, because I'm not sure the before and after. But are we just adding people, or are we actually changing the salaries for everybody?
It was changing the salaries for two of the classifications.
That's it.
For the fuels mitigation specialist and the fuels mitigation manager, it was increasing them to make them more marketable and make those positions more attractive. And so we could get more people.
Deputy fire chief.
Correct.
But, so it's not changing all of them, it's only changing, the title is a little bit confusing. It's only changing for those 3 or 4 people.
Correct.
Yeah, it's really approving an amendment to the unread appointment.
That's, yeah,
That's what it actually is, because there are others that aren't changing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Any other questions?
Public comment is open for item 10.3. And we do not have any public comment.
Else have any more questions before we do that?
No.
Or you want to, no, then
I was
let's
going
go
to
ahead.
second the motion.
Okay, go ahead. We need a roll call then.
Director Danziger.
Aye.
Director Haskell.
Aye.
Director Jeff.
Aye.
Director Jorgens. President Romer.
Aye. All right, 10.4, approval of unrepresented employee handbook authorizing salary and benefits for unrepresented employees effective August 22nd, 2024 to include provisions for the new deputy fire chief position.
So the unrepresented employee handbook has been amended to include the deputy fire chief position salary and benefits. By approving the handbook, the board is authorizing the deputy fire chief to be paid overtime for working in a battalion chief vacancy at the same overtime rate as battalion chiefs. The handbook also will authorize retiree medical and dental insurance benefits for the deputy fire chief at the same amount as the battalion chiefs. The third change is that the handbook includes a monthly uniform allowance for the deputy fire chief of $80 per month, which is the same as the battalion chiefs. Finally, the handbook states the deputy fire chief will be provided with a take-home emergency vehicle for official business only. All changes are in red in attachment A for transparency. Staff recommends the board approve the unrepresented employee handbook effective August 22, 2024.
Corey, I just had a quick question before we debate it. There's also a change, which, I mean.
I think you need to speak into the microphone.
Oh, sorry. There's also a change that doesn't relate to the deputy fire chief, just it's the IRS limit.
Yes, there's two, I believe, administrative changes. I called it in the staff report. So, right, one is to reflect the current IRS limit. And then there was one other minor administrative change. Thank you.
The IRS limit what?
For the 457 contributions that employees, that's all employee paid. That's not any money the district puts in.
And it's simply updating it to the new IRS limit, but I just thought we should call it out because.
That affects everybody.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, that's right. All unreps, because this particular thing only affects the unreps.
Let me chief here now, but I was gonna ask about the vehicle that deputy chief gets to take.
Can I just pull your microphone a little closer?
What's that?
It's not turning red.
Oh, I was going to ask about the vehicle that deputy chief gets to take with him for emergency responses. I want to know what kind of vehicle, and is this a generally accepted practice for a deputy chief to take home a vehicle?
So I know we purchased a new vehicle for this. So I think it's brand new.
Is it like a BC vehicle, or is it a car? I mean, is it?
It's not a car. It's
Like a-
more like a BC vehicle. Right.
This is for emergency use only, so I don't understand how that is. So does he take it home every night, or is it only when there are emergencies going on? I don't get how that works or what that means.
Yes, sir. So the deputy chief would be on call the same way that the fire chief is with a significant amount of moving. Sorry. Deputy chief would be essentially on call in the same way the fire chief is. As an exempt 40-hour employee, they're not subject to recall with regard to overtime like all of our other safety members are. So the vehicle is intended to be assigned to that individual in a take-home so they can respond direct from wherever they are to wherever they are. It also facilitates the wide-ranging nature of the location of their duties. That if we have the person coming and going from a variety of things as I do, it's facilitated and advantageous to the district for them to have a vehicle, sir.
So they get to drive home, but when they get home, they have to use their own car?
Yes, sir. It's official use only.
And what kind of vehicle is it?
They Dodge 1500, sir.
A what?
Dodge 1500, medium duty, or I guess light duty pickup truck.
Oh, pickup truck, okay. And so, in tech, so I guess the deputy chief is, when they go to bed at night, they keep their radio on next to them, or? Oh, so.
As
Well, I mean, how do they get recalled?
explains my hair on the back
Okay,
of
if
my
we
eyes,
need
but-
them, if
No, sir.
something big happens here,
Yes,
we
sir.
need.
So there's an emergency recall number with dispatch. So if there is any major alarm incident, you get a text ring and a phone call, as well as the battalion chief will call for any working structure fire or other significant incident. So they're, I don't know, on a couple times a month, I think is about right, where I get a call and then probably once a month or so, I'll respond in after hours for a significant event.
More questions on that?
Go ahead.
Okay, a couple other questions. Just on the holiday for deputy chiefs, there's a new position, so just ask a question. I know how firefighters now get their holiday pay every check, 26 paycheck. So a holiday comes up, Labor Day's coming up. If we have a new deputy chief, I assume it's a Monday. They're not going to work because it's a holiday. They just get holiday pay on that day? They still
Work
get,
the day,
they get
so
it
they
the
don't-
same way?
I don't understand the question.
Well, holiday pay for firefighters now, they get prorated for 26 pay periods, right?
Because they have to work those days.
Yes. So how is deputy chief going to get holiday pay? They don't get holiday pay at all.
I'm in lieu of the cash. So the members of the organization who get holiday pay, that's in recognition of the fact that they don't get holidays. They have to work. So if they want a day off, they need to take paid time off out of their leave stocks. 40-hour administrative personnel get the time off, therefore they don't get holiday pay in lieu because they get the day off.
Right. But I mean, on that particular day, Labor Day coming up, we're going to report him, whoever gets the job of deputy chief, 8 hours holiday. Or is it 8 hours regular? It's holiday,
Talking
right?
about what's the code in telestaff, sir?
It's whatever the code is for
It
holiday.
shows as a holiday, yes, sir. So I mean, I guess you could say it's paid time because they're getting their base salary. And even though they didn't have to go work, but there's not an additional holiday stipend that is attached on top of, I don't know off the top of my head what the telestaff code is.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't matter the code. I just want to know. So Labor Day coming up, the new deputy chief will not report to work. They'll be off. Okay.
Check would reflect 40 hours worked.
Their salary, what is the point?
Yes, sir. Right. They're correct. So whether they work 12 hours in a day or 2 hours in a day or come in the middle of the night, it's salary. Yes, sir.
Shall we go ahead and open public comment? Public comments open for item 10.4. And we do not have any public comment.
Approve item 10.4 as written.
Second the motion.
Roll call.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Hassler?
Aye.
Director Jext? Director Jorgens?
Aye.
President Blumer?
Aye. 10.5, adopt resolution 24.11, identifying the terms and conditions for fire department emergency response away from their official duty station and assigned to an emergency incident.
Evening directors, this is an administrative update that would allow the new deputy chief position to participate in the California Mutual Aid System, or CFAA, 7-party agreement to respond throughout the state, and for those responses to be reimbursed to the district to include portal-to-portal pay in the manner, the same manner in which all other district employees who respond on fires receive it. Employees need to be specifically identified as being eligible for this in order to participate in the system, and that's what this resolution would do. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
So in the event this happens, we get a reimbursement. Does that reflect the pay of the deputy chief or?
pay the vehicle as well as a 23% administrative surcharge. So when the employee leaves the district, their time during the day is paid. The district recovers that would have been time we would have had them working on our cost otherwise. After hours, they're paid, but that goes to the employee. It's time they would have not been working, not being paid otherwise. The vehicle charges accrue to the district, as does the 23% administrative handling fee, just like it does for other employees.
Public comment on that?
Yes, we do. Public comments open for item 10.5. We do not have any public comment.
I move we approve item 10.5 as written.
Second the motion.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Hassler?
Aye.
Director Jex?
Aye.
Aye. 10.6, authorize the board president to execute on behalf of the district a new letter of engagement with Rennie Public Law Group for district council legal services.
Evening, directors. The district has contracted with Rennie Public Law Group since December of 2017 for district council legal services. The hourly rate history is listed below. Hourly rate history was last updated in July of 2019, which served through June of 2024. There is a attached letter that explains the proposed rate increase to reflect a blended rate that will allow the district, instead of paying a single rate for services regardless of who is providing it, will allow a blended rate that will recognize that the district has an increasing need and use for services other than district council, associated with the expansion primarily of enforcement of our exterior hazard abatement ordinances 2303 and 2308. The blended rate, I believe, is advantageous to the district by allowing us to pay for what we're using. Previously, it was advantageous where we were primarily using district council and very infrequently using associates and others, and we were paying less than the market rate for district council. With the anticipation of continuing our current use of associates and others other than district council, we believe the blended rate would net a savings to the district, as well as reflecting an update, recognizing that the cost of everything has increased during the period of time. Be happy to answer any questions. Obviously, district council has left the room while we're discussing this, unless the board has specific questions for him.
We have a breakout between the two historically, between associate versus partner? Or-
Hours that we've used.
Yeah, the hours that we use. Or do we get that level since we pay a blended
We
rate?
could generate it. I don't have it. I would say,
Okay.
though, that part of this is forward-looking,
Okay.
that say late 2017 to about 2019 leading into the pandemic, John would regularly call me and say, I haven't talked to you in a couple months. How are things? Right. We just weren't doing, we're in the early stages of our development with enforcement and so forth, and we use very, very little counsel. Obviously, during the pandemic, there were some anomalies, but there's been a steady increase in the number of things that we have leaned on the law firm to support. That has an increasing number of others, but we anticipate going forward, particularly with transition of district leadership, that there will be a significant increase in use of associates and others. That this is intended to anticipate, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
We need to take action on this tonight because I don't want to make too specific recommendation to some discussion in our closed session, but I think that we were looking forward to some kind of a breakdown of our legal costs across the board. And it seems to me that would be beneficial to the entire board to have that document before we totally consider this agenda item.
Nothing other than district council's willingness to continue serving as their district council, which I'm not suggesting is in question here. There's not anything that is particularly urgent about this item for tonight, other than it has been a long time since we reviewed the fees and we were attempting to anticipate future usage. To the board's interest in legal fees in general and the specific breakdown of legal fees by level of lawyer that's providing them and by particular case they're assigned to, that is something we intend to bring forward at the board's direction. And should it be the board's pleasure to delay action on this until that's received, I don't think there's anything that prevent that.
I don't want to hold things up, but how do other board members feel about that?
I'd be in favor of approving this tonight. I don't think Anything else we talked about would impact approving the new rate.
Yeah, I would agree. It's been, yeah.
Great job. We have wonderful advice and counsel in addition to sort of technical legal stuff. I would approve it tonight personally.
Yeah, I'm fine to do it tonight.
I would find it helpful, but I'm not going to hold it up if I'm the only one who thinks it would be helpful. So I'm fine then.
I would just say it's been a long time, right? So if you look in, after 2 years, rates went up $50 an hour in 2019. So it's been 5 years since rates gone up. So if you consider inflation and everything that's gone on since then, it's.
Yeah.
You know, relative to lots of kinds of lawyers, these are low. So I'm not approving tonight.
All right. Any other questions or comments or discussion? You said, you look like John. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, public comment.
Oh, I was going to ask one thing though, since
go
we
ahead.
we have the one discussion coming next, would it be possible to get the breakdown between staff and associate with that? Or partner and associate with that, just for point of reference? Okay.
We can open public comment on item 10.6. We do not have any public comment.
I'd like to make a motion.
Do you have a second?
Okay. Whatever way you want to do.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Hassler?
Aye.
Director Jex?
Aye.
Director Jorgens?
Aye.
President Romer?
Aye.
Committee reports?
Okay. 11.1, Standing Audit Committee Report. Directors Jackson Hassler.
And there was no meeting.
Nothing to report. 11.2 ad hoc. Well, that meeting is taking place tomorrow night. So we're.
The next meeting we'll have an update.
Next meeting.
Yeah.
We may have some.
Yeah.
But not anything.
We can open public comment for committee reports. And we do not have any public comment. Requests for future agenda items?
I have one. I don't know that it needs to be a separate agenda item, but maybe when you do your fire chief update, maybe you can let us know about the status of the Station 45 remodel.
Good idea.
That's it.
We take a public comment for future agenda items. We do not have any public comment.
And we'll return.
Second.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
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 Director Romer?
Aye.
President Romer. Director Jorgens?
Aye.
Time is 8:54.
Wow. Good job. Mike, here we go.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
It's nice to go home before 9.
You got 2 more hours sitting right here.